Hello everyone, so I hope everyone is doing well. Today we will be recording our first video for our DSA playlist, which would be on array and arrays problems such as array sum, arrays average, and the minimum and maximum value in an array. So to start off, first we also need to understand what is an array and how the array works. So basically an array is a block of memory which we allocate to our system in which we can store a group of same it variables of a same data type. For example, despite declaring multiple values for int, we would declare an integer array and we can store how many integers we want for our specific array size. And the advantages of using an array is that they are efficient and they are quick to access. And they are really and they also have a really simple code syntax if we compare them with linked lists. So to initialize the array, we need to know that for initializing the array, we need to write the array's data type at first. Then we need to write the name of the array, and in square brackets we write the size of the array, and then we put an equal to sign, and in curly braces we write the elements for the array. So our first problem which we would be seeing would be calculating the average of the array. And to calculate the average of the array, we need to calculate the sum of the array by traversing through the whole array and adding all the indexes till the end of the array and getting the sum of the array, and at the end of that loop we need to divide that sum by the size of the array to get the average of the array. And then our next problem will be to find the minimum and maximum value in an array. For that we need to, for example, to find the minimum value we need to set the minimum variable is equals to the array's 0th index, so that when we traverse through the whole array, we will use an if statement to check if array's ith index is less than minimum or greater than maximum. So with that, we will equate array's ith index equals to minimum. And yeah, so now let's start to code. Yeah, so we will now set up the environment. And first of all, the problem we will do is arrays sum. So we have created our file and now we will code. First of all, we will declare the size of the array. In this case, I will take a size of 5 for the integer array. And now we will declare a function to take the input from the user of the array, and we will pass it the integer. We will pass this function the integer array in the parameters. So yeah, so to take an input, we will use a for loop that will run from the 0th index till the size less than the size of the array. And for each iteration, it will ask the user to input the value for each index of the array. So our function for taking the input of the array is done. Now moving on to our next function. Just a minute, we should use the other braces. Yeah. So now our next function would be the sum function, in which we will store the sum of the array. So for that, what we will do is that as our sum would be an integer value, we will declare a function with the return type integer and name it as sum and pass it the array. And now inside the function we will again we will declare a variable s in which we will store the sum of all the elements, and then we will run a for loop less than size. And now for each iteration it will sum the array's elements and store it in S, and after the for loop it will return S. Yeah, so our functions are done. Now let's write the code for main. We will declare our array, as it would be an array of type integer, so we will write int. We will declare our array's name and pass it the size of the array. And now we will ask the user to input values for the array, and we will call our function input and pass it the array, and now we will output that the sum of the array is, we will call our function sum and we will pass it the array, and yes, we are now done with our code for finding the sum of an array. Now let's run our program. Yeah, so we will input 5 values, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So our sum should be 15 upon pressing enter, and yeah, you can see that our sum is 15. And now by copying this code we will now find the average of the array values. Yeah, so you guys can see now. So here we will just change and we will use a float value for average, because average can be is mostly a floating value, and we will pass our integer array, and our sum value should also be a floating one, and s needs to be int s, integer sum should remain integer, and we will declare a new variable average with a data type of float. And yeah, so after it is done we will write that average is equals to the sum s divided by the size of the array, and then we will return average. Yeah, so the average of the array is in this case it should be 3. Yeah, so the average is 3, as the sum is 15 and 15 divided by 5 is 3. And now we would be writing our code to find the minimum and maximum value in an array. So now let's create a new file. Yeah, so I'm using the same code for input with the same size, and now we will find write a function with the value of return type integer, maximum, minimum, and we will pass it the array, and yeah, so now let's define the values for minimum and maximum. So int minimum would be array's 0th index and int maximum would be arrays 0th index. And now we will run a for loop for int I is equals to 0, I is less than size I plus plus. And now we will use an if statement, that if for minimum, if arrays ith index is less than minimum, then what should happen is that minimum is equals to arrays ith index and we will, and at the end of this we will return minimum. I think we should create two separate functions for maximum and minimum. That would be much easier for you guys to understand rather than creating the same function. Yeah, so now let's create the function for maximum. Int max, pass it the array, and for int I is equals to 0, I is less than size I plus plus, and again an if statement that if arrays ith index is greater than maximum, then maximum is equals to arrays ith index. And after the for loop we will return max, and we are done with our functions. Now let us write the code for main. We will declare our array. Now we will ask the user to input the array values. And we will call the input function. Now we will tell the user that the minimum value of the array is, we call the minimum function, pass it the array. Now we will tell the user that the maximum value for the array is, we'll call the maximum function and pass it the array. Yeah, so we are done with our program. Now let's run our program to see if it works. So I will be taking the input of the same values 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, in which the minimum should be 1 and the maximum should be 5. So yeah, as you can see that the minimum value of the array is 1 and the maximum value of for the array is 5. So yeah, that's it for today, and for the next upcoming DSA videos we will be doing some more complex problems such as 1-0 sorting and finding an element in an array, and finding an element in an array by passing a key, and a rotated array, and target some problems soon. So we will be mostly practicing lead code problems so that our DSA's array part goes very strong, and then we will further move on to linked list and other DSA topics. So yeah, that's it from my side. Please like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.